know he had a few at-bats on the backfield yesterday. Hit a homer, went deep.
3-2. Fly ball, shallow right center. The dive by Moniak. He can't come up with the ball. Now we talked about the defense of the Phillies. This so much was not the win. He just dropped the ball, so that gives Evans another swing.
Defense wins championships. A statement from legendary college football coach Bear Bryant. But what does it mean exactly? Well, the full quote from Coach Bryant is offense sells tickets, defense wins championships. In my opinion, this doesn't necessarily imply one is more important than the other. Rather, you need both to win the ultimate prize. So how true is this in baseball? Well, among the 76 teams who have made the playoffs since the beginning of the StatCast era, only 7 of them did it with a negative team DRS and UZR, two of the most commonly used advanced defensive metrics. So how did these teams make the playoffs? Well, most of them produced above average OPS plus and ERA plus numbers, apart from a few 2020 teams, also known as the season where more than half the league made the playoffs. So considering these numbers, can the 2022 Phillies make the playoffs? Well, the 2021 team was not only among the league's worst in DRS and UZR, they were below league average in OPS plus and ERA plus. In the past couple weeks, the Phillies committed to paying the luxury tax for the first time in team history with the signings of Nick Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber, who both produced poor defensive numbers in 2021. In particular, Castellanos, since moving to the outfield in 2018, has been arguably the worst defensive outfielder in baseball. With these moves, the Phillies have doubled down on their offense-first approach and are likely heading towards a historically bad defensive season. The question is, will this experiment work? As of April 3rd, the Phillies are entering the season with a 64.5% chance of making the playoffs, the 6th highest odds in the National League. Based on the total number of playoff spots, this gives the Phillies the final National League wildcard spot. Considering the Phillies entered the 2021 season with a 16.1% chance of making the playoffs, they must be in a much better spot. Well, the Phillies do have the National League MVP on their team, Bryce Harper. The top of the lineup will likely feature the team's newest signings, Schwarber and Castellanos. It's a toss-up on which of these players sees more time in left field instead of DH, but they are huge upgrades over Andrew McCutchen. These signings, along with Harper, are the only trio who will play on the same team in 2022 to each have a WRC plus over 140 in 2021. Looking at the rest of the projected lineup, the Phillies clearly got some run producers. If Gene Segura and Rhys Hoskins can stay healthy for the entire season, that'll make a huge difference. And while JT Realmuto slightly regressed offensively, he's still one of the best catchers in baseball, a crucial aspect to the success of this team. After those guys, the lineup gets a bit questionable. Didi Gregorius' 2021 season was not only his worst offensively, but defensively as well. However, the biggest X factor is third baseman Alec Bohm. His first full season after a successful 2020 season was a huge disappointment. But considering Bohm is only 25 and is a former top 30 prospect, it's not impossible to see some sort of resurgence, which makes this lineup even deeper. If not, Phillies' top prospect, Bryson Stott, could find himself on the roster very soon. However, even with all of this offense, the defense could be its downfall. Looking at the 2021 team positional rankings, not including pitcher or catcher, the 3 main advanced defensive analytics show only 2 positions where the Phillies were consistently average defensively: second base and center field. Considering the major signings the Phillies made were not signed for their defense, it's clear the Phillies pitchers are in for a tough time. However, this is a dilemma that President of Baseball Operations Dave Dombrowski heavily considered in the early offseason. The Phillies didn't have the luxury to look for both offense and defense without going deep into the luxury tax, so they're going to have to hope that their players at least somewhat improve their defense. Interestingly, Dombrowski does have some history with this sort of dilemma. About a decade ago, when he was running the Tigers organization, the 2013 and 2014 Tigers were 2 of the worst defensive teams to make the playoffs since the invention of the DRS statistic back in 2003. What was the key? incredible hitting and pitching. The 2013 Tigers seemingly had it all figured out. That's what happens when you have the MVP and Cy Young winners on the same team, and the talent beyond those guys was equally as impressive. While the 2014 Tigers weren't as successful on the pitching side due to injuries and regression, the lineup was the best in the league by a wide margin. Considering the 2021 Phillies defensive numbers, this seems to be the model the Phillies are going for: a deep lineup and a solid pitching staff. Obviously, building a team on paper can only take you so far. The 2021 Phillies were expected to be a good offensive team, only to finish the year as average at best. So, how was the pitching? In general, it was a slightly below average pitching staff. Zach Wheeler was a Cy Young candidate, and Ranger Suarez came out of nowhere and pitched great in the rotation. As for the rest of the rotation, it was suspect. Aaron Nola and Zach Eflin both regressed pretty significantly, as well as Kyle Gibson after being traded by the Rangers. But if you take a look at their FIPS, the Phillies' defense clearly played a huge part in these underwhelming stats. In fact, the Phillies were the only team in 2021 with a combination of a team ERA plus under 100 and a team FIP under 4.2, a number better than league average. The Phillies did make some much-needed signings for the bullpen, like Corey Knebel, Juris Familia, and Brad Hand, but it still might not be enough for a bullpen with the most blown saves of 2021. And with a starting rotation that's basically the same as last season, this team is taking a big risk with their season plans. Wheeler, Nola, and Suarez have the potential to be a great trio, with Gibson and Eflin in the back end. But these hopes just as easily could collapse, ruining any potential playoff chances. Obviously, this team is trying to win a World Series. That's what every team is trying to do. Well, you know, unless you're the Pirates. Regardless, the fact that not many teams with the same defensive struggles as the 2021 Phillies have made the playoffs in the past 20 years means making a World Series could be nearly impossible. Since 2003, the worst team to win the World Series in terms of defensive runs saved was the 2004 Red Sox. The 2021 Phillies were more than 2 times worse defensively. I understand I'm placing a lot of weight on the DRS stat, considering some recent world champions have had a positive team DRS and a negative OAA or UZR, but the problem is that the Phillies were negative in all 3 in 2021. The last World Series winner with a negative team DRS? The 2011 Cardinals. The last team to even make the World Series with a negative team DRS was the 2015 Mets. Interestingly, the Mets won their division while the Cardinals were a wildcard team. So there is always the possibility of the Phillies finding themselves in a wildcard spot courtesy of expanded playoffs. And once a team is in the playoffs, anything can happen. The 2021 Braves were the worst division winners in baseball, but that didn't stop them. Also, consider this. If there were expanded playoffs in 2021, the Phillies would have missed the playoffs by only 1 game. They aren't as far away as some may think. Still, to win a World Series with this team, with their projected defensive outlook, would be unprecedented. The Phillies are a very talented team in some aspects, but a very flawed team in others. The question is, how are they going to overcome and improve upon these flaws? Well, specifically in the outfield coach Paco Figueroa wants to keep everything basic. With all of the analytics and information cards that fielders check before each at-bat, Figueroa believes the basics of keeping the ball in front of the body and making the routine plays will be enough for the team to succeed. Infield coach Bobby Dickerson believes defense is all about attitude and focus. In essence, the controllable things are what matters. He respects the analytics, but it's his job to coach the players who produce those stats. Every game is different. I try to look at what's happening within that game, and we try to attack that as it comes. Castellanos and Schwarber know their role is to crush baseballs, but that doesn't mean they can't be competent fielders too, even though they won't be in the outfield every day. The Phillies are starting off the season with higher playoff odds than at any point in the 2021 season, but there are many ways this experiment could play out. By the end of the regular season, the Phillies could be hitting their way into the playoffs, or sitting in mediocrity like in 2021. For this to work, the Phillies not only have Dombrowski's old Tigers teams to look at for inspiration, but they also have an old blueprint from a decade ago, the 2011 Phillies.
Lines it to straightaway center. Torres on the run. He's not going to get there. Watch this one roll. Utley around on second, heading to third. Sawwell's going to wave him. Fontenot's throw to the plate. It's done in time! An inside the park home run!
This 102-win squad was very similar defensively to the 2021 team, but the pitching staff essentially outpitched their defensive woes, as that starting rotation was one of the best of the 21st century. Along with their great pitching, their offense was good enough, sitting just slightly below league average. Luckily, they don't need to win 102 games in 2022 to make the playoffs, but for this experiment to work, the offense needs to be at least top 3 in the league, and the pitching staff needs to sit around league average. Easier said than done, but this is the path the Phillies chose. The Phillies could have signed a couple defense-first players instead of Castellanos or Schwarber, but the Phillies felt this was the better path. The pitching will be tested, the offense will be heavily relied upon, and the defense will be scrutinized. There's a very thin margin for error. If done right, this experiment could break baseball, but it could also break the Phillies. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, and subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks for watching.